Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering the door to the XRP store has been slammed shut. Now, picture the lock clicking a kind of split second before you grab the handle. Now, that tiny heartbeat, that's all the time that we might have left. So here is why I nearly spilled my coffee over my keyboard at 3 a.m. scrolling through crypto Twitter. Edoardo Farina, the guy who's been beating the Ripple's hiding something drum louder than a nightclub subwoofer, just fired off a tweet that's kind of felt less like a warning and more like a kind of klaxon in a submarine movie. Now, he basically said, once Ripple uncorks its secret about the 37 billion coin escrow, Ripple folks like you and me won't be snagging XRP under $2 ever again. Now, that's not maybe, that's not someday, but that's it, lights out. Now, that tweet detonated in my timeline like confetti at a surprise party. Except half the guests were, well, hyperventilating. Now, I did what any caffeine-powered degen would do. I dug in. Now, you know those nights where one Reddit thread leads to 5 PDFs and 10 XRP Ledger tabs and somehow a YouTube rabbit hole about quantum banking. Yeah, it was one of those. Now, I kind of dug deeper, or at least the deeper that I went, the more that I realized this story isn't only about price predictions. It's about who ends up steering the boat when crypto finally crashes into the old school banking pier. Now, before we set sail, here's a quick pit stop. Now, if you like unpacking these mysteries in real time, then hop into our free educational Discord server. The link is in the description, at least lounging down there anyway. And it's kind of where I test half-baked theories, share spicy charts, and meme my way through market meltdowns with hundreds of other night owls. Plus, it costs exactly $0, which fits nicely into a bear market budget. Alright, let's set the scene. Right, let me rewind for folks who haven't memorized Ripple's escrow saga. Now, Ripple locked up roughly 37 billion XRP, about 3/4 of the total supply. Now, back then, inside time-released smart contracts, of course. Now, each month, 1 billion coins, it auditions for freedom. But everything that they don't use gets stuffed right back into the queue like leftovers in Tupperware. Now, transparency points for Ripple. You can check and track every escrow event right on chain. So what is all the drama about? Well, it's because Farina argues that the blockchain only shows the what on the who promised what to whom after the lawyers ordered another espresso. Now, his kind of spiciest hypothesis, possibly, that Ripple has already inked deals with heavy hitters, maybe the US Treasury, maybe the IMF, maybe the next Bond villain with a money printer. Now, all those deals kind of transfer eventual control of huge XRP chunks off Ledger. The translation is that the supply and the demand chessboard that we stare at each morning could be missing 3 queens and a knight. So let's picture it. Ripple steps into a press conference stage, or onto a press conference stage, waves a stack of NDAs thicker than a kind of Tolstoy novel, and, casually announces at least that escrow tranche, 202, just moved onto a central bank balance sheet. Now, if that headline ever crosses Bloomberg, well, every remaining coin on exchanges could disappear faster than festival tickets after Beyoncé tweets. Now, retail liquidity would be gone. Price, well, you'd have to strap in. And that is where Farina's last chance siren blares. Now, he claims that the window is opening right now, today, this week, maybe this summer. After that, institutions could slam it shut and nail the frame. Now, people argue that his fear-mongering, right? But remember when Michael Saylor told us that he was buying Bitcoin at $400 million a pop, and we thought it was just clickbait, right? Sometimes the tinfoil hat becomes the graduation cap. Now, here's the relatable kind of gut punch then. Most of us aren't sitting on yachts with limit orders the size of small nations, right? We're dollar cost averaging on payday, trying not to panic when price kind of, or at least the gas prices kind of spike for Ethereum, or Aunt Linda asks why Coinbase is red again. Now, the challenge is deciding whether Farina's flair means run towards the smoke or grab another marshmallow. And are we early explorers, or are we just extras in a Titanic story? So to figure that out, I pulled up some stats. Right now, XRP's daily volume hovers around $6 to $8 billion on a good day. Right now, that sounds pretty chunky until you realize Apple trades more than that before lunch. Now, the supply locked in Ripple's escrow, right? That's roughly 40% of all future quarterly unlocks. So if even a slice of that gets earmarked for government coffers, well, the float on public exchanges shrinks faster than a cotton shirt in a hot dryer. Add Ripple's regulatory dance into the mix. They're gunning for a US national bank charter and cozying up with a Federal Reserve master account. Now that's your kind of indie coffee shop, applying to become the new Starbucks overnight. Now if they pull it off, XRP suddenly graduates from altcoin with a lawsuit hangover to potential plumbing inside the oldest plumbing in finance. Liquidity corridors, sentiment rails, cross-border remittances. That's nerd talk for big money gliding through your ledger, whether you're watching it or not. And I couldn't shake the image of a drawbridge lifting while the villagers kind of still argue whether dragons exist. So I grabbed a fresh mug, crunched the numbers and asked, what happens if institutions stash even 10 billion XRP all at once? Well, using conservative multipliers from past supply shocks, you could see a 3 to 5-fold squeeze before the market breathes. Now that would yank the sticker price out of the $2 bargain bin and slam it into double digits. Maybe more if FOMO really licks the rocket fuel, if you will. Now, slight detour for the folks emailing me, which exchange do I trust? Well, personally, when I need deep liquidity without my spreads looking like the Grand Canyon, I use Kraken Pro. Now, I've parked my affiliate link in the description. Clicking it throws a few pennies into the channel tip jar, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Full disclosure though, that makes it a kind of paid endorsement. You would have seen that when you started the video, and using that link kind of supports the channel's caffeine habits. Let's get back to Farina's theory time bomb then. Right, the skeptics fire back, show us the paperwork. And they've got a fair point, right? Nobody outside Ripple's inner circle has eyes on those NDAs, if they exist. But history shows that secrets don't stay buried forever, especially when regulators poke around. So remember the Bitcoin ETF race? Well, Bloomberg leaked whispers long before the SEC stamps hit the kind of docket, and every leak moved the markets. At this point, my brain kind of felt like popcorn kernels, so I jumped into our free Discord voice chat. Again, the link for that is down below, and tossed the grenade. What if Ripple's escrow is already effectively spoken for? The responses ranged from kind of a calm meh to a full-blown dude, I'm mortgaging my cat. Now, one member even dropped a killer analogy. It's like musical chairs where half of the chairs are invisible until the music stops. Now, whether you sit or hit the floor depends on how early you grabbed the space. Now, that sentiment kind of gnawed at me while kind of scrolling through the XRP Ledger Explorer, kind of watching another monthly unlock swell down the blockchain conveyor belt. 70-something million coins returned, to escrow last month. Routine, boring, yet suddenly loaded with subcontext. Were those coins truly available someday, or had they quietly received forwarding addresses in Washington, D.C.? Now, halfway through writing this monologue, I kind of felt the pinch of responsibility. So here comes the mandatory reality check, and this might just shock you, but I repeat, not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Cool, so now that the lawyers are happy, let's keep spinning the yarn. So picture the narrative climax like a Hollywood montage. Ripple's CEO steps onto a stage, slides open a digital vault and reveals a memorandum, stamped by the IMF, right? And they announce a multi-year liquidity framework using XRP as back-end collateral, right? Global news desks would go berserk. Exchanges blink as kind of buy walls kind of stack higher than skyscrapers. Now, in 24 hours, the supply whip cracks. Retail holders watch wallets balloon on paper, but here's the twist. You can't sell because liquidity dries up as quickly as it boomed. Order books turn into tumbleweed, and the price chart looks like it chugged an energy drink. Then enter institutions. Calm and patient, stepping into the vacuum to soak up what little float remains. Now, because their kind of mandates kind of kicked in months earlier in those kind of secret agreements, of course. Retail, while we're kind of watching from behind the velvet rope, souvenir tickets in hand. Could that be the hyperbole? Well, absolutely, but it could unfold slower, drip by drip, until one day we look back and wonder why we didn't connect the dots sooner. Also, absolutely. Now, markets, they rarely kind of give dramatic fanfare. Sometimes they just stop returning your calls. Now, one lesson from every kind of bubble and every bear market that I've kind of trudged through is this. Narratives become self-fulfilling if enough people buy them, literally. Now, that's speculation for you. Now, Farina's megaphone, it might end up bringing, at least being kind of the spark here. Or maybe his thread is the fire drill that keeps everyone alert. Either way, ignoring a blaring alarm just because you can't see flames is a risky bet too. Look, right, there's a reason that central banks hoard gold while they, print paper. Right, hard assets, whether shiny metals or digital tokens with utility, offer, optionality. So if Ripple's goal is to kind of weave XRP into global payments the way that SMTP underpins your email, well, they need partners who kind of think in decades, not pump and dumps. And partners who think in decades tend to secure their inventory before the crowd even wakes up. So what do we do? Now, I can't answer that for you, but I'll tell you what I am doing. I'm treating every unlocked escrow month, like a calendar reminder. When I see a billion XRP float out, I kind of sniff around exchange depth. I watch OTC desks chatter, and I set alerts, that ping louder than my morning alarm. I keep dry powder ready, but I refuse to kind of YOLO my rent money, right? Strategy kind of beats the adrenaline every time. Another trick is reading between the bureaucratic lines. Right, when Ripple kind of filed for that national bank charter, right, I spent an evening kind of parsing the application like Sherlock Holmes. Right, the language around settlement assets danced suspiciously close to "we already picked one, wink wink." Now, the same vibes with the Federal Reserve master account request. Then that's not something that you kind of attempt unless heavyweight allies are whispering, "come on in, the water's warm." Now remember, government entities move at tectonic speed. If meetings, started 2 years ago, conclusions could land any day now, in theory. Now that's kind of why Farina's final deadline isn't a calendar date. It's a kind of foghorn somewhere in the midst, right? You won't see the iceberg until you're kissing the hole. Now, by the way, if Kraken Pro sounds like your kind of harbor, then don't forget that affiliate link down below. It supports, or using it supports the channel's caffeine and coffee addiction and lets me keep making these rabbit hole deep dives like this. Regulation says that I must tell you that it's an ad, and ethics say that I should probably remind you to compare the fees and security across multiple platforms. Never marry your exchange, just date around responsibly. I often say you should sign up to as many as possible and see which one resonates best with you. Alright, let's zoom out and breathe. The key takeaways are that Ripple's 37 billion coin escrow is a loaded chess piece. The on-chain data only paints half the mural, right? Off-chain agreements could, emphasis on could, flip the supply narrative overnight. Edoardo Farina is either the crypto 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗋 or the boy who cried wolf. Only time will judge. Now, regulatory breadcrumbs suggest that Ripple wants to morph from fintech startup to institutional backbone. Now, if that happens, the retail window for cheap XRP might close faster than we all think. And so, the question isn't, will XRP pump tomorrow? It's, do you want chips on the table before the casino swaps it open seating policy for VIP booths? Now, I keep chasing the paper kind of trail, and you can bet any kind of juicy updates will hit our Discord first. The invite's still free, of course. Now, for now, monitor those escrow releases like a hawk. Read every Ripple regulatory filing, even if it's drier than the desert air. And remember, narratives steer markets, but only you can steer your portfolio. And now, if you've made it this far, you're the kind of legend that I want on this ride. So hit that subscribe and let's unravel the next mystery together. And hey, you can drop a comment with your wildest theory as well. IMF collusion, alien bankers, time-traveling accountants, you name it. Right, the more angles that we crowdsource, the sharper that our collective radar gets. So until the next late night tweet kind of sets off our alarms, keep your wallet secure, your research tabs open, and your sense of humor intact. Because in crypto, the only constant is surprise. And I would rather face it with brains, buddies, and a backup plan than alone in panic mode.